The trunk had not been opened in decades. Lady Dolly Bantry stared at it. James stood beside her. His hands rested on the brass lock. He looked at her. "Shall I, my lady?" She nodded. The lock gave way. The lid creaked open. Inside lay faded bundles, letters tied with ribbon, a miniature portrait in silver frame, and an envelope marked in careful script. Dolly leaned closer. Her voice dropped. "Arabella March." James read the name. "Yes, my lady. Your grandmother's cousin?" Dolly touched the portrait. A young woman's face, dark hair, sad eyes, firm mouth. She frowned. Forgotten, and yet still here. James picked up the sealed envelope. He read the words. "For my heirs." Dolly's hands trembled. She broke the seal, unfolded the paper. Her eyes scanned quickly. Her breath caught. "To the living female line of Arabella March, I bequeath Rose Walk, the cottage, the garden, and an annuity of £50 a year." James straightened. "Rose Walk, my lady, the empty cottage near the church." Dolly's lips moved slow. Yes, all this time. Waiting. She read further. The rightful heir must show the locket and the letters, and must appear at Gossington Hall. Her voice broke. It was meant as proof. Grandmother planned this carefully. James looked grave. "Unusual terms, my lady, but binding." Dolly pressed the portrait against her palm. "Arabella's child, forgotten by all, but not by her." The silence grew heavy. Dolly turned to James. "We must call Simmons. He will know the law." James nodded. "I shall ring at once." Dolly stepped back. Her thoughts raced. Inheritance. Secrets. Scandal. She moved to the telephone. Her voice sharpened. "Operator, connect me to Mr. Simmons." Minutes later, his voice crackled. Dry, formal, she told him. His tone shifted. "Preserve all items. Do not release them. I will come at once." Dolly replaced the receiver. She hesitated, then dialed again. "Inspector Slack, please." She told him briefly. He agreed to call next day. "Family matters breed trouble, Lady Bantry. Best I know early." She put down the receiver. Her hand lingered. Another call. "Doctor? Hey, Doc?" "Yes, Dolly?" "I need you. Come tomorrow. There may be complications." Finally, she called her friend. "Jane, it's Dolly. I found something strange. A trunk. Letters. An inheritance. I need your eyes before scandal begins." Marple's voice answered calm. "You know I can't resist mystery. I'll be there tomorrow at 4. Dolly exhaled. Her hand still shook. She looked again at the portrait. Arabella's eyes seemed alive, accusing, waiting. She pressed the frame shut. Her voice low. "What if someone still comes to claim it?" The motorcar stopped at the gate. James stepped forward. He opened the door. A woman descended, tall, confident, perfectly dressed in navy wool. She smiled. "Lady Bantry." Dolly rose from her chair. "Yes, I am Dolly Bantry." The woman extended a gloved hand. "Helena March, a distant relative, I believe. I read the notice. I think my claim concerns Arabella March." Her voice was smooth, educated, measured. Dolly studied her, the poise, the careful words, the assurance of someone used to being believed. "Please sit," Dolly said. She gestured toward the morning room. Another figure followed. A man with silver hair, eyes sharp, smile practiced. "This is Mr. Julian Hazelig," Helena said. "He has been advising me on family papers." Hazelig bowed slightly. "An honor, Lady Bantry." James poured tea. The cups clinked. Silence stretched. Helena placed a small case on the table. She opened it. Inside lay a gold locket, old, worn. Dolly leaned forward. Her breath caught. The locket opened. Inside, a faded photograph. "The likeness is strong," Helena said. "Surely you see it?" Arabella herself. Hazelige nodded. The portrait matches the miniature from the trunk. The details are precise. Dolly stared. The resemblance was real, but the certainty was too quick, too polished. Helena's hand moved again. She placed another bundle on the table. Letters tied with ribbon, the ink faded, but neat. "These came from my late husband's family papers," she explained. "They prove descent. They show Arabella's child, and her line." Hazelige's voice carried weight. "I examined them myself, authentic, in every way." Dolly touched one page. Her fingers shook slightly. The paper felt right, the script careful, convincing. Yet something gnawed, too complete, too arranged. She forced a smile. "Very remarkable. You came prepared." Mrs. March Helena's eyes softened. "Please call me Helena. This matter touches me deeply. It is not about money alone. It is about restoring family honor." Hazelige leaned back, his tone casual. "And I assure you, Lady Bantry, I would never mislead you. My reputation in London is sound. History has been my life's work." Dolly heard the words, but her mind wandered. The trunk in the attic, the portrait's sad eyes, the warning in Arabella's letters. Helena's voice returned. "You see why I had to come. My claim is rightful. I believe your grandmother intended me to have Rose walk." Dolly's heart pressed tight. She wanted to believe, but belief and truth seldom matched. The room fell silent. Helena's gaze held steady. Hazelige's smile never broke. Dolly folded her hands, her voice even. "Your claim will be considered carefully." At that moment, James entered again. He cleared his throat, his eyes fixed on Dolly. "Another visitor waits, my lady." The second woman entered slowly. Her steps were hesitant. Her hands clutched a small book, her eyes lowered. James announced her name. "Miss Nora Page." Dolly rose. She smiled, to soften the moment. "Please come in." Nora nodded quickly. Her dress was plain, her posture humble. She looked as though she feared rejection. "I saw the notice," she whispered. "I thought perhaps I should come." Helena's eyes sharpened. Hazelige leaned back with faint amusement. Dolly gestured to a chair. "Sit, Miss Page. Tell us what you know." Nora perched on the edge. Her fingers held the book tighter. "It may not matter," she murmured, "but this was my mother's. She always said we were linked to Arabella." She opened the book carefully. The worn leather cracked at the spine. Inside, names filled the register, dates of birth, deaths, marriages. Nora pointed with a trembling hand. "Here, Arabella March, spinster, mother of Martha, Martha Page, born 1887. Martha was my grandmother." Dolly bent forward. The ink was faded, but the handwriting was genuine. Different hands. Across generations. Corrections made in haste. Hazelige leaned closer. His tone was smooth. "Such family registers are easily forged. Village hands are careless." Nora flushed red. Her voice wavered. "My mother said it was true. She said Arabella's blood ran in us." Helena folded her hands. Her smile was sharp. "Belief is not proof, Miss Page. Sentiment does not make law." Dolly raised a hand. "Enough. Let me judge the value. Myself." She studied Nora's face. No polish, no rehearsed words, only nerves, only fear of being dismissed. James coughed gently. "The book has age, my lady, not the sort one purchases in haste." Nora glanced up gratefully. She whispered, "Thank you." Dolly sat back. She weighed the two women. Helena, flawless, armed with papers. Nora, modest, armed with little. But memory and a register. She felt the pressure of choice. The cottage, the money, the legacy. If she dismissed Nora, injustice might linger. If she dismissed Helena, wealth and documents would stand against her. She folded her arms, her voice steady. Both of you will stay at Gossington Hall. Your claims will be considered. Neither will be rejected until truth is clear. Helena inclined her head. As you wish, Lady Bantry. Nora lowered her eyes. Her lips moved. In silent relief. The room grew quiet. Dolly's gaze moved from one face to the other. The contrast was sharp. Confidence against humility. Polish against honesty. Her chest tightened. The weight of the trunk's secret pressed heavier. She thought of Arabella's sad eyes in the portrait. She wondered what the woman would say if she stood here now. Dolly closed the book gently. Her thoughts whispered inside. What if neither speaks truth? Jane Marple stepped from the taxi. James took her bag. Dolly waited at the door. Relief showed in her eyes. "My dear Jane," she said quickly, "you must hear everything. It has grown complex." Marple smiled faintly. Her steps were careful, her eyes bright. "Tell me all, Dolly." They moved to the morning room. Helena's locket lay on the table, the bundle of letters beside it, the prayer book near. Dolly poured tea with unsteady hands. She explained each detail, the trunk, the portrait, the will, the claimants. Marple listened in silence. Her knitting lay untouched, her hands folded, her head bent slightly. She did not interrupt. When Dolly finished, her voice dropped. "I do not know who to trust, one polished, one modest, both convincing." Marple nodded. She reached for the locket. Her fingers traced the chain. She examined the clasp, her voice soft. "Curious. The hinge, too new. Tiny screws, machine-made." She looked closer. And the wax on these letters, so green, so fresh, not the usual red. Dolly leaned forward. "You think they are false?" Marple smiled gently. "I only notice what is there. The rest, we must see." Helena entered then, her dress crisp, her smile steady. "Lady Bantry, Miss Marple. I hope I'm not intruding." She crossed the room. She sat without pause. She placed the locket near Marple again. "I believe you will find it most authentic." Hazeligh followed her, his voice easy. "Indeed, Miss Marple. The documents are quite sound. I've handled many such pieces in London." He leaned back in his chair. His words flowed. He spoke of old paper, of seals, of mounts, of preservation. Marple watched him. She said nothing. Her eyes blinked slowly, her head tilted. Dolly shifted uneasily. Hazeligh spoke too fast, too much, as if he needed to convince himself as well. Nora entered quietly. She carried sewing in her hands. She looked uncertain, her voice low. "I did not wish to disturb." Dolly smiled at her. "You are welcome, my dear. Sit. Rest a little." Nora obeyed. Her hands moved nervously with the cloth. She kept her head lowered. She whispered thanks. Marple watched her, too. Her eyes softened. The girl's modesty felt natural, not performed. The room grew still again, Helena upright, Hazeligh speaking, Nora silent, Dolly tense. Marple placed the locket down. She looked at Dolly, her voice barely above a whisper. Details never lie. The paper felt too new. Marple held one letter to the light. Her brow tightened. "Dolly, may I try a small test?" Dolly nodded. James fetched a shallow dish. Warm tea poured. Marple dipped the corner. Gently. The paper darkened. A faint mark appeared. Marple tilted it to the light. "Here, see a watermark." Dolly leaned in. Her lips moved slowly. 1904? Marple spoke plain. "Yes. But the letter is dated 1892. Silence filled the room. Helena shifted in her chair, her voice firm. "Paper can be stored, used later. It means nothing." Hazeligh's smile never faltered. Indeed, Miss Marple. Collectors often keep unused stock. One must not leap to dark conclusions. Dolly's hand trembled. But the seal, the ink, they looked right. Marple's tone was steady. Appearances can deceive. Details reveal more than faces. The tension pressed hard. Dolly lowered the page. Her mind spun. Forgery? Deception? Could it be true? James announced a visitor. Mr. Simmons entered, briefcase in hand. His spectacles glinted. He sat without ceremony. "You asked for my opinion, Lady Bantry," Dolly explained quickly. "The will, the claimants, the documents." Simmons examined the letters. First, he tapped the edges. Curious texture, unnatural for the stated date. Then he studied the Locket photograph. He paused. "Where was this taken?" Hazeligg answered smoothly. "A Brighton studio, late 1880s. Simmons adjusted his glasses. "I wired Brighton this morning. That studio opened in 1898. Not before." The words struck sharp. Dolly froze. Her voice cracked. "Then it cannot be Arabella?" Simmons closed the case. "Evidence is inconsistent. Too many errors. A court would question it." Helena's face stiffened. Her words clipped. "My late husband preserved these papers. I trusted his care. If mistakes exist, they are innocent." Hazeligg leaned forward, his tone light. "My dear Lady Bantry, small errors occur. Dating, mounting, archival slips. You must not assume fraud so quickly." Marple's eyes never left him. Her knitting remained untouched. Her silence, louder than words. Dolly pressed her hands together. Her heart beat heavy. Helena polished, Hazeligg confident. But the cracks showed now. Perfect things never cracked, unless pressed. Nora sat apart, quiet. Her prayer book closed in her lap. She said nothing. Her eyes lowered, her presence calm, but heavy. Dolly breathed shallow. She glanced at the portrait again. Arabella's painted eyes seemed to question her, seemed to warn her. She rose slowly, her words soft. "So who forges? And why?" A new man entered the hall. James announced him. "Mr. Vane, genealogist." The visitor bowed slightly, his coat plain, his manner brisk. Dolly stepped forward. "Sir Henry sent you?" "Yes, Lady Bantry. He believed a neutral eye was needed. I specialize in family records. I hope my presence is acceptable." Dolly nodded, her voice faint. "More than acceptable. We need answers." Mr. Vane placed his case on the table. He opened it with care. Notebooks, small glass, a scale for measuring. Helena watched him closely. Her smile was steady, but her fingers tapped the chair. Nora shifted uneasily. Her prayer book slipped in her lap. "Let us begin," Vane said. He lifted the bundle of letters. He held them to the light. He examined the wax. He noted the handwriting. "Curious," he muttered. "Paper from the early 1900s, yet dated a decade earlier." Hazeligg interjected smoothly. "Stored sheets. Happens often. Surely you agree." Vane did not respond. He opened another page. He measured margins. He compared ink strokes. His pencil scratched notes. Then he turned to the photograph in the locket. He placed his glass over the image. He frowned. This mount was cut after printing, edges trimmed with a modern blade, and the cardstock far later than claimed. Dolly's chest tightened. Her hand pressed the table. The doubt grew heavier. Nora whispered softly, "My mother said the proof was in names, not paper." Vane looked at her kindly. "Perhaps so, but law demands more than words." Helena's voice sharpened. "My grandmother's word is not to be dismissed. These items are heirlooms. They traveled long distances. Wear and error are natural." Vane nodded politely. "Of course. But the pattern repeats. Errors accumulate. Too consistent to be chance." Hazelig leaned back. His smile did not falter. Scholarship often leads to doubt, but doubt does not make truth. The room fell quiet. Dolly's eyes moved between them. Her trust wavered, one side confident, the other quiet, the truth buried deep. Vane closed his case. He stood. I will examine more tonight, with better light. By morning, I will give you certainty. Dolly exhaled, relief mixed with dread. Thank you, Mr. Vane. I only want what is just. He inclined his head. You shall have it, my lady. I will not fail you. He moved toward the library. James lit the lamps there. The door shut firmly behind him. The hall grew still. Nora twisted her hands. Helena sat rigid. Hazelig hummed low. Then from the library came a dull thump, heavy, sudden, and silence followed. The French windows were locked from inside. James forced the door open. The others followed close. Mr. Vane lay on the rug, face turned to the side. A bronze doorstop near his head, blood dark on the carpet. Dolly gasped. Her hand clutched the chair arm. Dear God. Inspector Slack arrived soon after. He bent down quickly, his tone brisk. Fell from the desk. Clumsy accident. That's all. Dr. Haydock shook his head. He knelt beside the body. He touched the wound gently. Number. The blow was clean. Director. Not a fall. Slack frowned. Don't start making murder. Where there isn't one. Haydock rose. I know the difference between stumble and strike. This man was struck. Dolly's voice shook. He was to give his judgment tonight. He promised truth by morning. Slack snapped his notebook shut. Maybe truth frightened him. Maybe he drank. He slipped. That's all. James coughed. No bottle, sir. No glass either. He was working. Steady. Slack ignored him. His eyes swept the room. Windows locked. No forced door. Accident. File it that way. Marple had said nothing. She moved near the desk. Her eyes lowered. Her hand brushed a sleeve of the dead man's coat. Something clung there. She pinched it between her fingers. Green. Grainy. Dolly asked quietly, What is it? Marple rubbed the dust. Her eyes narrowed. Wax. Green wax. The same as on the forged seals. Hazelig stepped forward quickly, his voice smooth. You cannot draw meaning from specks. He handled many papers. Wax crumbles easily. Helena's face was pale, but her tone sharp. This is vile, to hint murder before us all. The man worked too hard. That is why he fell. Nora stood silent near the door, her prayer book pressed to her chest. Her lips moved without sound. She looked frightened, but not surprised. Slack snapped at Marple. Leave the specks alone. I say accident. That settles it. Marple folded her hands. Her voice stayed soft. Accidents are untidy. This is too neat, too deliberate. Dolly pressed her eyes shut. Fear grew heavy in her chest. She whispered to herself, If truth kills, how dangerous must lies be? The room held silence again, the body still. The windows locked, the weight of suspicion growing. Slack wrote his final note. Cause accident, nothing more. Haydock muttered, Fool. He left the room stiff. Marple remained at the desk, her eyes fixed on the green dust in her palm, her breath low. She whispered clear enough for Dolly to hear. This was no accident. Light glowed where no light should. Marple stood in the corridor. The house was quiet. Only faint steps echoed below. She moved softly. Her shoes barely touched the floor. The light came from the conservatory. Through the glass, she saw Hazelig. He bent over a small fire grate, papers in his hands, his movements fast, nervous. She pushed the door slightly. The smell of singed card drifted out, edges curled, blackened. Hazelig fed another sheet into the flame. A photograph mount cracked in the heat. He pressed it down with iron tongs. Marple stepped closer. "Working late, Mr. Hazelig?" He spun around, his face stiff, then smooth again. "Miss Marple, I tidy documents, nothing more." Her eyes fell to the grate. Charred strips bore faded ink. One corner showed Arabella's name. "Before it burned." She said nothing. Her silence cut deeper than questions. Hazelig's tone sharpened. "Family quarrels should not consume outsiders. You play with fire, madam." Footsteps sounded. Sergeant Lake entered, lantern in hand. He froze at the sight. "What's this?" Hazelig stiffened. "Routine disposal, old scraps. Of no use." Lake stooped. He pulled half-burned paper free. He held it to the light. "Writing still clear. This is no scrap. This is evidence." Hazelig's voice rose. "Baseless suspicion. Forgery? Absurd. I am a scholar." Lake turned to Marple. She pointed at the pile. Photographs remounted. Letters too neat. All prepared. All false. Lake's jaw tightened. "Enough. You'll come with me, sir." He drew the man back from the fire. Hazelig resisted for a moment. Then his shoulders dropped. His smile vanished. Helena appeared in the doorway, her eyes wide. "What are you doing? He is my advisor. You can't take him." Lake ignored her. He placed irons on Hazelig's wrists. The click echoed in the glass room. Hazelig muttered low. "You fools chase smoke. You'll never find the fire." Lake shoved him forward. "Out! To the station. You'll answer for forgery." Helena trembled. Her hands shook. Her gaze darted between Dolly and Marple. "I swear he acted alone. I knew nothing." Dolly pressed her lips tight. She said nothing. Her heart pounded, relief mixed with fear. The forged letters were ash now, the false mounts half gone, but truth remained, even in fragments. Nora stood behind them, her voice quiet. So much effort. Why destroy proof? Unless it was false. Dolly nodded faintly, her chest heavy. If forgeries existed, then who made them? And why? Marple's gaze lingered on Helena, then on the locked library door. Her voice carried no triumph, only calm certainty. Forgery explains some things, not murder. She frowned, her whisper clear, yet not the killer. Marple lifted the miniature again. The frame caught the lamplight. She held it close. Her eyes narrowed. "Look carefully," she said softly. "The ear, torn at the lobe." Dolly leaned forward. Yes, a small tear, almost hidden in the paint. Helena gave a short laugh. "Artists invent blemishes. It proves nothing." Marple did not answer. She glanced at Helena. Her ears shone clear. No scar, no mark. "Do you wear heavy earrings, Mrs. March?" Her voice was mild. Helena stiffened. "Rarely. I prefer light styles. That is all." Marple nodded. "Then your ears should carry no tear. Indeed. They do not." Helena folded her arms, her smile thin. "You search shadows, Miss Marple. You will find none." Nora shifted in her seat. She brushed her hair back nervously. The movement was small, unthinking. Dolly gasped. "There, your ear, child. The lobe, torn." Nora froze. Her hand dropped. She turned red. "Yes, it happened when I was little. My mother's earrings. I pulled too hard." Marple studied her, her voice calm. "And your mother said you came from Arabella's line?" Nora nodded quickly. "She told me often. Her mother said the same before her. It was never hidden in our home." Dolly pressed the portrait to her chest. Her voice trembled. "The scar in the painting. The scar on you. The likeness runs true." Helena rose sharply. "This is absurd. A child's accident compared to a painted blemish. You choose fancy over reason." Hazelig gone now. Her voice shook without support. Her tone was brittle. Nora's eyes lowered, her hands twisted in her lap. "I never wanted quarrel. I only came because truth should be known." Dolly's throat tightened. She looked at both women, one polished, angry, the other simple, marked by chance. Marple laid the portrait on the table. Her tone stayed even. Proof does not shout. It waits. It hides. In details. Inspector Slack muttered from the corner. You can't prove inheritance with an ear scar. Marple smiled faintly. Not alone, but with the register, with the book, with a habit of truth. Yes, Inspector, it weighs. Dolly closed her eyes a moment. The burden pressed heavier. Proof favored Nora now. But justice was never simple. Her thoughts whispered inward. If proof is clear, why does fear still grow? The room fell into silence. Nora sat small, still. Helena stiff, rigid. Dolly weary. Marple's gaze lingered on the body remembered. Vane lying still. The locked windows, the wax dust. Her voice sank low. But why kill Vane, if truth was clear? Old sins never stay buried. Marple spoke softly, her hands folded on her lap, her eyes lowered. Dolly leaned closer. What do you mean, Jane? Marple paused. Then she lifted the miniature again. She tapped the edge of the frame. Arabella's story was not what it seemed. She bore a child, not in marriage, in secrecy. Dolly gasped. But we never heard such a thing. Of course not, Marple replied. It was hidden. Respectability demanded silence, but such silence always cracks. Inspector Slack frowned. Rumors, nothing more. Scandal tales fill every parish. Marple shook her head. No rumor. Evidence lies in the register Nora brought. Arabella's name linked to Martha, and the scar that passed down. Truth leaves small marks. Nora's voice trembled. My mother said Arabella was shunned. She lived quiet, away from the hall. Her child carried her shame. We carried it, too. Dolly pressed her hands together. Tears welled in her eyes. All these years, Bantry blood and March blood mixed, and we forgot her. Helena spoke sharply. Stories, hearsay, none of this matters. Law demands proof, not gossip. Marple turned slowly. Yet you fear it, Mrs. March. Fear shows in your eyes. Fear of more than money. Fear of disgrace. Hazeligg gone. Her voice shook. But she stood defiant. You accuse without cause. I will not listen. Dr. Haydock entered then. He spoke low. I treated old villagers who remembered Arabella, whispers of a child hidden away. Slack scowled. Whispers again. I deal with facts. Marple's voice stayed calm. Facts drove Mr. Vane to his death. He found too much. Not only forged. Papers. But the link to scandal. That is why he died. Dolly's breath quickened. Her heart beat heavy. So the inheritance alone was not the prize. No, Marple answered. Not money alone. Reputation, standing, position, all crumbled if truth emerged. Nora looked down, her voice small. I never sought wealth. I only wanted my mother's words respected. She carried shame all her life. Dolly reached for her hand. My dear, it was not her shame. It was the family's, and it was buried. The room grew quiet. Even Helena had no reply. Only her lips pressed tight. Marple's eyes swept the group. One person here struck Vane, to keep silence, to prevent scandal from breaking open. The blow was not for greed, it was for fear. Dolly gasped, her voice cracked. Then the murder was to silence the past. Two sets of lies, twisted together. Marple spoke quietly. Her hands rested on the table, her eyes sharp. Dolly leaned closer. You mean Hazeligg's forgeries? Yes, Marple said. His false letters, his false photographs. That was one scheme. Helena cut in. He acted alone. I never touched those papers. Marple nodded faintly. Perhaps. But forgery is not the only deception here. Inspector Slack frowned. You want more puzzles, do you? The man burned fake papers. That explains it all. Marple shook her head. Not all. Consider the library door, locked from inside, yet Vane was struck, not fallen. Dolly whispered, "Then how?" Marple glanced at James. "Tell us about the keys." James hesitated. Then he spoke, slow. "There is one master passkey. It opens every door in the hall. I keep it in the pantry drawer." Mrs. Beddoes, the housekeeper, stepped forward, her face pale. "I saw that drawer 2 nights ago. The key was gone. I thought James had moved it, but he had not." Slack muttered, "Keys go missing. Servants borrow them. It proves nothing." Marple's eyes fixed on him. "Servants borrow to polish silver, not to strike scholars in locked rooms." Beddoes twisted her hands. "When I checked again this morning, the key was back, quietly returned." Dolly gasped. "Then someone here used it. Someone inside the house." Nora looked frightened. An outsider could not know the pantry drawer. Marple nodded. "Correct. Forgery came from Hazeligg, but murder used knowledge of this house." Helena stood stiff. "You dare hint at me? I would never touch a servant's drawer." Marple's tone stayed mild. "I hint only at facts. One hand forged, another hand killed. 2 sets of lies, woven tight." Haydock crossed his arms. So Hazeligg's forgeries were cover, but someone else turned them deadly. Dolly pressed her forehead. Her voice trembled. Arabella's memory dragged into this. Our home tainted. What sin demands such layers of deceit? Nora spoke. Low, fear of truth. The silence grew thick. All faces turned toward Marple. Her gaze swept them one by one. Each avoided her eyes. Slack tapped his notebook. "Enough riddles. Name the guilty if you can." Marple smiled faintly. "Patience, Inspector. The pattern grows clearer, but one thread still hides." Dolly leaned forward, her voice urgent. "Jane, do you mean we face another hand at work?" Marple nodded once. Her whisper cut through the room. "There's a hand we have not yet seen." The song rose softly. "In the kitchen." Nora stood by the stove, her hands busy with a teacup. Her lips moved without thought. A tune drifted out, low, gentle. A pattern of notes repeated. Dolly paused in the doorway, her head tilted. "I know that melody. Where did you learn it?" Nora flushed, her hands stilled. "Oh, just something my mother sang. She said it came from Rose Walk, a song they used to sing to children." James looked up from the kettle, his brow furrowed. "My grandmother sang that too. Always said it belonged to the March family." Dolly's eyes widened, her breath caught. "Arabella's song." Nora blinked. "I never thought it mattered. It was only a lullaby." Marple entered quietly, her gaze fixed on Nora. "Sing it again, child." Nora hesitated, then hummed once more. The notes carried the same old rhythm. A tune passed down unseen. Marple nodded. "Not in books, not in records. A habit passed through blood. Such things cannot be forged." Helena appeared in the doorway, her tone sharp. "A nursery song proves nothing. Any village woman might know it." James shook his head. "No, madam. Only those who lived at Rose Walk. It was never sung outside those walls." Nora lowered her eyes, her voice small. "My mother said the same. She said it marked us. Arabella sang it to Martha. Martha sang it to my mother, and my mother to me." Dolly's throat tightened. The truth felt heavier than paper, heavier than law. She whispered, "Blood speaks, in ways words cannot." Helena's hands clenched, her lips pressed thin. "You build castles on air. Songs prove nothing in court." Simmons, the solicitor, entered then. He heard the tune still in Nora's hum. He adjusted his glasses. "That melody has been noted before. Old village custom. It belonged only to Arabella's house. I recall testimony from years past. Helena turned pale. Her composure faltered, but she forced a smile. Coincidence, nothing more. Nora stood silent now, her cheeks red, her eyes wet. I never meant to argue. I only sang without thinking. Marple stepped forward. She placed a hand on Nora's shoulder, her voice calm. Truth slips out when guards are down. It hides in habits. It hums in songs. It does not lie. Dolly closed her eyes. Her heart stirred with both sorrow and relief. Arabella's blood lived still, and it revealed itself without demand. The room stayed quiet. Even Slack said nothing. Even Helena looked away. Marple's whisper carried through the silence. Proof is in habits, not words. The library door key lay in the wrong place. James found it first. It sat on the mantel, not in the pantry drawer. Dolly frowned. That key never leaves its drawer. Marple nodded, unless someone used it, and returned it late. Too late. Inspector Slack scowled. Servants misplace things. You build castles from nothing. Marple's voice stayed calm. Not nothing. Vane locked himself in, yet he died by a clean strike. That means someone entered with the pass key, then left, locking behind. The room grew still. Nora whispered, "But who could?" Marple looked at the desk. Vane studied the documents. He found too many errors. He was ready to expose forgery, but he also uncovered Arabella's scandal. One person here feared that truth more than all. Dolly's hands trembled. "You mean the child in secret?" Yes, Vane knew. He intended to reveal it, but someone silenced him before he spoke. Slack muttered, "Hazelig forged the papers." He had motive. Marple shook her head. Number Hazelig burned evidence, a coward's act, not a killer's, and he was watched when Vane died. Dolly turned slowly, her eyes fixed on Helena. Marple's voice sharpened. "Mrs. March, you claimed lineage. You showed polished papers, but you feared exposure of more than false descent. You feared disgrace." Helena stiffened, her face pale. "I deny this. I knew nothing of keys. I never touched that drawer." Mrs. Beddoes stepped forward. Her voice shook. "I saw you, madam, in the passage that night, near the pantry. I thought little of it then." Helena's lips parted. She faltered. "I only sought water." Marple's eyes narrowed. "Then why return a key to the wrong place? Why leave it on the mantel?" Helena's silence deepened. Her hands shook. Dolly whispered, "Arabella's scandal tied to your name. If Vane revealed it, your claim ended, your standing ruined." Nora lowered her head, her voice quiet. "I never wished you harm, Mrs. March. I only wished truth. But you struck him to hide it." Slack grunted. "Seems clear. The key, the fear, the silence." Haydock added, "The wound was precise, not chance, not fall." Helena stepped back. Her voice cracked. "He forced me. He said he would shame us all. I had no choice." Dolly closed her eyes. Pain pressed heavy. So it was not money. It was pride. The room held silence. All eyes turned to Marple. She spoke steady. "She killed to protect more than inheritance." The past returned in a single name. Marple spoke it clearly. Arabella's child was Martha. Martha's blood flowed to Nora. But Martha's shame touched. "Another line, too." "Helena's," Dolly gasped. "Helena's line." Marple nodded. "Yes. Your claim, Mrs. March, was not false by chance. It was twisted by fear. Arabella's blood lived in both branches, one hidden, one disguised." Helena's face drained of color. Her voice broke. "Lies. All lies." Marple's tone stayed calm. Vane traced it. His notes showed the connection. You saw him discover it. You knew he would reveal it. And so, you struck him. Inspector Slack stepped forward. His eyes narrowed. "With what?" Marple pointed at the bronze doorstop. The weight by his head, it matched the wound. He never fell. He was hit. Haydock confirmed. The blow was deliberate, clean. No stumble could cause it. Dolly's hands shook. She whispered, "You killed him?" Helena trembled. Her lips moved, without sound. Nora sat still, her prayer book pressed to her chest, her eyes full of sorrow. Marple continued, "You entered with the passkey. You struck before he could leave. You tried to make it look like an accident. You placed the key back in the wrong place, but details betrayed you." Helena cried out, "No. He threatened me. He said he would expose everything, my name, my family. I could not allow it." Dolly shook her head. Truth would only have wounded pride, but murder ruins the soul. Helena's hands gripped the chair. Her voice sharpened. "You do not understand. Position is everything. Without it, we are nothing. He left me no choice." Slack wrote quickly in his book. So the motive was not inheritance alone. It was shame, scandal, fear of ruin. Marple's voice softened. Old sins drove new sins. Secrets buried deep never die quietly. They return, demanding silence. And you chose silence, with blood. Dolly's eyes filled. Her voice cracked. Arabella's memory deserved peace. Instead, it brought death. Nora whispered, "I never asked for this. I only wanted truth, not wealth, not scandal, only to belong." The room stayed heavy. Helena stood trembling, her face pale, her eyes wild. Marple's words fell like final judgment. "You staged an accident, but accidents rarely hide intent, and the truth waits, however you strike against it." Helena screamed suddenly. Her voice rang through the hall. "He forced me. I had no choice." The police led Helena away. Her wrists bound, her eyes wild, her lips still moving, in denial. Inspector Slack marched behind, his notebook shut, his voice sharp. Charged with murder, no escape. Haislig already sat in a cell, forgery pinned on him, the burned papers, the false locket, the false letters, his clever words, turned to dust. Now Helena joined him, not for forgery, for blood. Dolly stood by the window. Her hands trembled, her heart heavy. "I never thought my home would see such things." Marple touched her arm. "Truth is never gentle, but it is needed." Nora sat quiet, the prayer book still with her. Her eyes lowered. She whispered, "So that Rosewalk is mine?" Simmons, the solicitor, cleared his throat. "Yes, Miss Page, the register, the scar, the song, all stand as proof. The court will see no challenge now." Nora's eyes filled. "My mother always hoped for this, not for money, not for gain, but for respect." Dolly nodded softly. "Then she has it. And so do you." Haydock added, "The cottage will be quiet again, better than scandal, better than fear." Nora smiled faintly, her voice unsteady. "I will care for it. I will make it a place of peace, for Arabella, for all of us." Dolly turned to Marple. Her voice broke. "Jane, how did you see it so clearly?" Marple's reply was calm. "Because people betray themselves, not in grand gestures, but in details. The hinge, the wax, the song, the key." Dolly lowered her head. Small things led to truth, and yet small things caused ruin, too. Marple nodded. "Yes, greed for position, fear of disgrace, they twist people more than hunger ever could." Nora whispered, "And still, I almost lost." "If not for you." Marple smiled faintly. "No, child. Truth would have risen. I only quickened it." The hall grew quiet. The servants hushed. The rooms felt heavier, with absence. One taken for forgery, one taken for murder. Only truth remained. Dolly pressed her hand to her chest. "Arabella's memory will not rest easy, but at least it is not forgotten now." Marple looked toward the door where Helena had been led away. her eyes steady, her voice low. Yet greed never truly ends. Silence returned to Gossington Hall. The doors were shut, the rooms still. The police had gone. Dolly sat by the hearth, her hands folded in her lap, her thoughts heavy. She spoke low. So much greed, so much shame, and all from one trunk in the attic. James stood nearby. He poured tea. He said nothing. His silence was comfort enough. Dolly closed her eyes. She saw Arabella's portrait again, the scar on the painted ear, the truth in the register, the song from Nora's lips. All the small things, she whispered, they carried more weight than wealth itself. Nora visited the next morning, her steps lighter now. Her hands still clutched the prayer book. She smiled faintly. Rosewalk is mine. The papers are filed. Simmons confirmed it. Dolly reached for her hand. My dear, you deserved it. Your mother deserved it. Arabella, too. Nora's eyes filled. I will make the cottage a place of peace. No more secrets. No more shame. Just quiet. Dolly nodded, her voice soft. Yes, that is how it should be. The village whispered for days. At the grocer, at the church door, in the lanes. Some pitied Helena, some cursed her name. Most only shook their heads. Greed had written its story again. Dr. Haydock stopped by, his voice kind. Health will return to this house, Dolly. Scandal fades. Time softens wounds. Dolly answered slowly. Time does not heal all, but it makes the pain easier to bear. Inspector Slack sent a note. Brief, formal. Case closed. Matter settled. Yet Dolly knew nothing was settled. Truth had been spoken, but scars remained. They always did. Marple arrived in the afternoon. She sat quietly with her knitting. She spoke little. At last Dolly asked, Jane, do you think this will end? Marple's eyes stayed on the needles, her voice calm. End. Number. Truth brings peace, but not forgetfulness. Families hold scars. They do not vanish. Dolly sighed. Her heart ached for Arabella, for Nora, even for Helena. So much lost. For pride, she whispered. Marple set the knitting aside. She looked at Dolly, her gaze steady. Greed, pride, fear, they repeat. They change faces, but not shape. Every village hides them, every family too. The fire crackled faintly. The silence grew deep again. Marple's final words carried across the stillness. And still, in every family, waits another forgotten cousin.